Hi, and welcome back to session 3, Mediterranean Conservation. I'm Aziz, and I'm joined now with Christoph. This session, we'll explore the role of marine protected areas in conserving Mediterranean marine biodiversity. Participants include current students, researchers, public administration, and NGOs, who will share their insights from their respective fields.
So discussions will focus on the ecological and socio-economic rationale of MPAs, marine protected areas, also how to evaluate and enhance their effectiveness, innovative management and monitoring approaches, and the role of science, but also policy and civil society in the governance of conservation areas. For all of that, we are really lucky to be joined today with a nice panel, starting with Luisa Manquelaggio. Luisa, you're professor from Université Côte d'Azur, the lab EcoSys, also from the same laboratory, and alumni from MarWorld. Julie, hi Julie, your PhD currently in marine ecology. From Blue Seeds.
Yeah, from Blue Seeds, we have Guillaume Laporte, who's a MPA manager, project MPA manager. And also from Blue Seeds, we have marriage student, Amy Green.
And also join us, the president of the NGO Nature Dive, based in Cannes, and also project manager in Métropole de Nice, Jean-Vincent Vieux-Ingrassa. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us today. It's fantastic. We have such a wide range of backgrounds with us, and so we'd like to get to know you a little bit better. So we're first going to come to Luisa, if that's okay. If you could explain some of your background and research, that'd be great.
Yes, I had a few slides to show you.
Yeah, go ahead. We're going to share.
Do you have them?
Yeah, go ahead. You can start, Luisa.
Okay. So, okay, a little bit my background. I'm a professor at the Université Côte d'Azur in the EcoSys laboratory. And my research focus is principally biodiversity, conservation, and ecological restoration of marine forests, but also experimental ecology to understand the consequences of human impacts. I also have some other duties in international and national committees, such as the Seaweed Specialist Group of IUCN, and also a program of IUC UNESCO on benthic microalgae. Are you sure you are seeing my presentation?
No, you're not sharing it anymore, but maybe if you can continue at the same time. So what's the main focus of your research on, for example, marine forest restoration?
It's ecology of of coastal ecosystems, and in particular macroalgal forests. Okay. So my research is mostly based in the Mediterranean Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea is very peculiar because it's a very high biodiversity sea. And this is not my presentation. And there are a lot of species that are endemic, but it's also subjected to multiple perturbations. So because the impacts are historically rooted, and climate change effects are already very visible, and also is one of the more invaded basins. In the Mediterranean Sea, we have several emblematic and unique ecosystems. Like, for example, in the previous sessions, I saw Posidania oceanica was mentioned several times. We have also a kind of kelp forest, the large brown seaweeds that are mostly of the genus Cystoseira, that is also endemic of the Mediterranean, and the coralligenous communities, where you all can know, for example, the gorgonians like Paramuricea clavata and red coral. These ecosystems are submitted to several anthropogenic drivers, such as, for example, habitat destruction, especially for the shallow habitats, but also decrease in water quality or in turbidity, for example. Physical damages can also be important, like mooring and fishing or trampling. And we have also to talk about biotic factors like proliferation of herbivores, for example, and invasive species, and of course, climate change. These impacts are all very often interacting. So a very important loss of this ecosystem have been recorded, and this is why they are all included in the new adopted Nature Restoration Law of 2024. as a priority ecosystem to be restored in the Mediterranean Sea. So what is the link with MPAs? MPAs play a major role in the nature restoration law because they are designed as priority sites, including also the Natura 2000 site, because regulations and monitorings can be implemented more easily than outside the protected zones. And so our research here in Université Côte d'Azur are inserted in a European context. For example, I can mention a present project we have that is the Forescue project, focused on the Mediterranean conservation of marine forests, and a past project that was more focused on reforestation, so ecological restoration. I mean, restoration ecology, to be precise. We do fundamental research, and in particular on experimental ecology, but also applied research, for example, like mapping and studying distribution of species that is not very well known. And an important part of this project is also to interact with stakeholders. And so we organized several events like seminars, work groups, and web seminars, and also publishing a paper that is a logical framework as a decision tool, a decision support tool for the restoration of marine forests in the Mediterranean Sea. I hope I respected the 5 minutes. I'm not sure.
You sound very busy.
It is true.
It's true, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. So you're from Ecosis Lab, from the same laboratory. We can move to Julie. Hi, Julie. You're an alumni from MarWorld. And if we focus on your PhD first, we can maybe come back also on your master thesis after with a fisherman. But you're working with MPAs, with urban MPAs. So can you tell us a little bit more about your PhD?
Yes, so I'm working on mainly on MPAs, and the objective of my PhD is to assess the effectiveness. But what is important is to precise what effectiveness means, because depending on which way do you assess the effectiveness is not the same. First, I assess the management effectiveness. So the idea is to do a questionnaire in different MPAs in the Med Sea. So I went in 12 MPA from Spain to Albania. So I did Spain, France, Italy, Greece, and Albania, to assess the management effectiveness. So the idea is to see how the management team can implement the management. So what do they do every day? Which action they implement in a concrete action in the field, and with who they collaborate, and so on. Also, I try to collect the data on the ecological effectiveness. So it's two types of effectiveness related to MPAs. And the ecological effectiveness, it's basically how many fish and also the biomass of fish inside and outside. And the ratio between inside and outside can give us the ecological effectiveness. So the idea is to collect this type of data in different MPAs, because what is the objective of the MPAs? It's to protect the conservation and to conserve the marine biodiversity. So one objective is to see the biodiversity increase inside, and I assess the fish biodiversity. The specificity of my subject is the urban character of an MPA, and it's the first time that this type of research is doing in the Med Sea and also in the world, because the term urban MPA doesn't exist yet, mainly because when you're talking about protection, it's difficult to see economic development and a city next to a protected areas. So it's not very common. We have some example in Marseille with Parc National des Calanques, and also in Monaco with Larvo 2 MPA. So the idea of my PhD is to assess the different MPA. So I use 20 MPA to see the level of urbanization next to.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can go to Guillaume now. I know you were in the previous session, but maybe you can speak more about conservation in the Mediterranean.
Yes, thank you. First, I have a very important question for Christophe. I forgot the next presentation. Is it Crystal singing in the introduction video or not? No?
I'm going to try to ruin all of our sessions.
Yeah, sorry. Before talking about my work at Blue Seeds in the Med, I will take a moment to talk on a personal level, because Mediterranean is very important for me, because so I'm working at Blue Seed in the Med for the last 7 years now, going all around the Med for different missions with MPAs. And last year I had the opportunity to take 1 year off and to do a 1 year bike trip between Spain and Turkey, following the Mediterranean coast. So I did 14,000 kilometers all along the Mediterranean coast, the northern part of the Mediterranean. So yeah, Mediterranean is very, very important to my heart. This is in Albania, and that's why I was very happy that you invited me to this session on Mediterranean conservation. And I'm sorry, I knew that I would not only talk about conservation, but also about my personal experience. And doing this trip, I had the opportunity to visit a lot of people I work with in different MPAs, because at Blue Seeds, our main focus is on supporting marine protected areas with a focus in the Mediterranean basin to develop financing mechanism and to get more resilient when it comes to their funding. So basically what we do, we develop a wide range of different activities to support MPAs, from helping them in doing their business plan and their budget, to write down some European proposal or implement some specific local financing mechanism, such as entrance fees, concession fees, also working with them on developing some blue carbon funding. And so, yeah, we have a lot of work with MPAs. As Julie was saying, it's really important that MPAs are effectively managed to deliver the environmental and biodiversity protection objective. And to have this management effectiveness, one of the key elements is to get enough funding to do that. And also to do that, we also work at the regional level with a network that maybe Amy will be talking about now.
Good transition then. We can continue. So we're going to come back to all of that, talking about monies and doing the questions, but let's keep working with you on Blue Seeds and go to Amy. Amy, you are at Blue Seeds and you're working on a specific project, which is Together for the Med. So talk about it, please.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Amy, and contrary to Guillaume, I'm very new to the Mediterranean, so this is my first time coming to the Mediterranean in September when I joined MARS.
Where do you come from?
And I'm from the United States originally. But I think that already being here, it's really clear to me the huge diversity of different management strategies and the diversity of the Mediterranean ecosystems as well. So here at Blue Seeds, this is just some of my photos from discovering the Mediterranean. But I'm working here in Bordeaux at Blue Seeds right now, specifically on a network called Together for the Med. And so at Together for the Med, it's a network of over 50 NGOs and research institutions and different organizations around the Mediterranean working towards marine conservation. And so the idea behind this is to connect people in general and share knowledge. When people know how to protect an environment in one place, they can share that knowledge with someone else across the world. And there's a lot of different, I think something that I've learned here is that there's a lot of different governance strategies and different ways that people can approach marine protection, but this place is full of people that want to protect it. And so the role of this network is to connect those people and figure out how to help overall MPAs expand their coverage in the Mediterranean.
Thank you, Amy. So we're also coming back then to the question. Let's move to Jean-Vincent Villain-Grassa. Jean-Vincent, you have a bit two roles today. I know the one you want to use first, president of a local NGO called Nature Dive, or working with the Métropole de Nice. Your microphone is just mute. Hold on.
It's okay?
It's okay.
Okay. Yes, hello. Nice to be here. As you mentioned, I was elected the president of Nature Dive last February, and succeeding founders Samuel Giglo and Damien Edouard, who became a director and deputy director of the association. So it's a true collective, and they are doing wonderful work to preserve coastal ecosystems, such as removing ghost nets, replanting Posidonia meadows between the Lawrence Islands, or running several marine educational areas along the coast. So this is a big step for me to become the president and to represent the association, but it's a collective. And then
so
I
it's a
have
collective.
a double. Yeah.
Oh, just before going for that, so it's a collective initially of divers. If I understand, divers were not all scientists, but they work for environmental matters and for science.
Yes, at the beginning, we are just diver biologists, and we wanted to apply a scientific protocol and to create a new biological divers to have more data for scientists and for the labs, because you know that the labs have maybe not enough money to have more data, enough data for the basis and from the scientific research. So the diver who can dive every time he wants. This is the big collective to have data, to have scientific knowledge, and so this is the first will of the association, and then the association grew up. And so now we are more technical. We can so doing technical stuff and became professional.
Yeah, we may talk about that during the questions, especially like the reimplantation of Posidonia in between the two islands of Lérins, so just off Cannes in Côte d'Azur. Exactly. What about your other hats? It's also connected to conservation, at least, I guess, if you can say a few words about that.
Yes. So the second hat is I'm the environmental and biodiversity officer or project manager. I don't know the exact word at the Nice metropolitan area. So I act as a liaison between policy and administration in implementing structural projects or events on the environmental and biodiversity team. So to do this, I work with Richard Chemla, who is deputy mayor of Nice, responsible for the environmental health, animal protection, and overseeing the organization of the Ocean Summit, but just the point of view of the city, not for the big events of the United States.
Thank you very much. So it's great to have so many different kind of perspectives and backgrounds here. So I want to go back to Louisa and ask you a more general question. For all the people around the world watching that maybe have never visited the Mediterranean, what are the most urgent threats to Mediterranean biodiversity?
Just hold on, Louisa. Go ahead.
Yep.
Okay, so I think it's important to say that the Mediterranean effectively is a very under pressure sea, but I wouldn't be able to give one more important pressure than the other, because first of all, the drivers that we want to study will not be the same in function of the targeted ecosystems, because not all the ecosystems are actually submitted to the same impacts. And also there is another consideration that is important to my opinion, is that impacts can act at different scales. So we have to separate the impacts acting at the global scale, such as climate change, that is of course a very important problem and very well studied, and other impacts that are acting at a smaller scale, like local or also very local, that seem less important, but actually in the context of global change, not climate change, they are actually acting at the wide scale and can have consequences sometimes more important than the climate change on the short term. For example, concerning Posidonia Cystoxera forest that I introduced to you before, I think that the small scale impacts acting on the wide scale are the most responsible of their regression, for example, while for more deep environments, such as the coralligenous environments, climate change had a very important impact with mass mortalities that are well known due to heat waves. So my message that I could pass is that we don't have to think that one driver is more important than the others. They are all important depending on the compartment that we are studying, where they act, and that we don't have to think that the small scale impacts are not important. And also that some indirect effects of impacts can be very important, such as, for example, the proliferation of herbivores, that for marine forests is one of the major threats, that is due to the overfishing of their predators. So we think that overfishing is fishing as an impact, but actually the indirect effects can have cascade effects that involving other biotic components.
Fantastic. And obviously included in that is the role of MPAs. So maybe I can ask Julie about the importance of connectivity between MPAs.
Connectivity between MPAs. Actually, it's not exactly the topic of my subject, so I don't want to talk about something that I'm not sure. But if I would like to continue on the subject of Louisa, because Med-C, it's traced by different pressure. And if we have a look on very local France context in the Med-C, one of the main pressure for the coastal ecosystem, when we are talking about fisheries, for example, fishing, so it's the local fisheries. So it's mainly professional fisheries, like the artisanal one can have an impact on the ecosystem, but also the recreational fishing. And this is very important because sometimes you cannot realize that a few fishermen go every Sunday to fish a fish can be impactful for the ecosystem. But in an area like Alpes-Maritimes, it's a place where you have a lot of recreational fishermen from the coast, but also go with a boat in the sea. And this is important to keep in mind, that in some places in the Med-C, it can be impactful. But for example, in Italy, in the south of Italy, it's not the same type of fishing.
Maybe, Julie, on that, can you tell us a bit more how you are assessing this impact? How do you assess with the fishermen, the artisanal, the professional one or the recreational world? How scientists like you are interacting with them?
To assess the impact of the professional fishing or the recreational fishing, it's not the same method. It's very difficult now to know how many recreational fishermen are in the area, because when you go to fish in the sea, you don't have any license and you can do what you want, because no rules exist in France, at least. So it's very difficult to assess that. But what we do, it's first the experimental fishing. For example, to assess the fishing in the MPAs. So we do experimental fishing inside and outside when it's allowed to fish inside, to see the difference between inside and outside of the MPA, to see how the MPA can benefits to the economical part for the fishermen.
But when you say we're fishing, I guess it's not you in the lab, so you're partnering with the fishermen directly.
Yeah. So Ecosys Laboratory, it's in Nice, and we are connected with all the fishermen in the port in Alpes-Maritimes. So from Cannes to Menton, we have contacts with the fishermen, and the idea is to develop projects and to integrate them in the project and to do collaboration with them. So it's mainly through experimental fishing. So we go to fish because we're not allowed to go on the boat with them, but every day when they come back and from the night, we go to the port and we exchange and discuss and do the scientific protocol.
It's very nice to know that you have this connection with the fishermen. Maybe we can go back to Amy. Amy, if you can give us an idea of if you see that also happening, what's the relationship between the fishermen and the protection measures around the Med with Together for the Med?
Yes, so one of the focuses here is also making sure that the MPAs are benefiting the local communities and the socioeconomic impacts that are going to be beneficial for the communities. And I think one way that that's very achievable is through marine protected areas, because those protected areas, even when fishing is restricted and fishermen potentially are not gaining that money from their catch, they can gain money because of the spillover effect that causes in the areas surrounding the MPAs. And when fishing happens outside of MPAs, there's a benefit to the socioeconomic area as well. And additionally, we work with a lot of NGOs that work on community management. So when the people who live in an area are the ones who are creating the rules, the fishers are the ones who know the pressures, they can be the ones who are making the decisions. And this is where we do a lot of work to collaborate with decision makers when available, and also with the fishers themselves, to be able to make a system that is both sustainable and beneficial for the local ecosystem and economics.
And maybe we're short of time a little bit, but maybe one of the last points we can briefly discuss, maybe Louisa and Guillaume, is about restoration in the Mediterranean. Obviously a huge topic around the world, but specifically in the Mediterranean. What role do you think restoration has in the future of marine conservation in the Mediterranean? Maybe Guillaume first?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say that it depends what do we consider when we talk about restoration, because basically, Louisa, you stop me if I'm wrong, because you're the scientist, but we can talk about passive restoration and active restoration. So passive restoration basically is when you implement an MPA and when you stop some activities, and the ecosystem, the habitats should regenerate themselves naturally. And then we have active restoration, which is basically, for example, planting Posidonia. When we talk about restoration, a lot of people think about a humanly restored active restoration, which is, according to me, working not for all habitats and ecosystem. When it comes to mangroves, for example, we have a project in West Africa. Mangroves may be an easiest ecosystem to restore. And for some, let's say, underwater species or ecosystems, sometimes it can be more complicated. So us at Blue Seed, for example, we focus a lot on funding and supporting passive restoration more than active restoration. Louisa, I leave you the floor.
We can go to Louisa, and maybe also after that, Jean-Vincent, if you want to talk about what Nature Dive is doing. Louisa?
Okay, so very, very fast. I don't want to take the floor too long. I completely agree with Guillaume that it's very important to know what is restoration, what is not, and how is composed restoration. So active and passive restoration is restoration, but for example, we use the word restoration sometimes to talk about the species reintroduction. This is not restoration, or species replenishment. So replenish species that are already there, and this is not restoration, such as improving ecological quality or ecosystem services and so on. It depends. It's very important to know the definitions. For what concerns at the moment most of the marine ecosystems, we are not ready to, how you say, scale up restoration, because most of the actions are still at the experimental level. So it's a restoration ecology and not ecological restoration. This is very important.
You mean it's more a science to study how
the
it works
science,
than really
the ecology of restoration, not the restoration of ecological characteristics and so on. And so I think that, but this is very important to be done, because if only experimenting that we will one day maybe be able to scale up and do really actions of restoration. And answering to what Aziz was asking, what is the role of restoration? So in the short term, it's trying to understand how to restore for most ecosystems, but on the long term, it's the only solution, because in the Mediterranean we really lost a lot of surface of major ecosystems, and most of them are sensitive, and the natural recovery is very low. So it means that passive restoration is the base. As Guillaume was saying, we can do restoration without passive restoration, but also active restoration is very often needed.
And help can boost. And thank you, Louisa. On that, maybe Jean-Vincent, if you want to talk about a project which is ongoing with Nature Dive, so it's a restoration project in between the two islands of Lérins. So it's a place, if I understand, which is not fully protected, and where your colleagues are trying to re-implant Posidonia there. Jean-Vincent, hold on.
It's okay
Go
for
ahead.
me? Okay, so it's thank you. It's a beautiful transition for this subject. Exactly. So in Cannes, there is an underwater ecomuseum, and so the principle of this ecomuseum is to avoid the anchor effect and the anchor boat. So the impact is none. So we can have a lot of action, such as the replanting the Posidonia. So the Natural Dives team of scientific divers and its volunteer rely on a methodology optimized and scientifically validated through their successful replanting experiments, such as Andromeda oceanology done. So it is based on the replanting of fragments of Posidonia, fragments mechanically turned off by anchors or naturally by storm.
You're not removing Posidonia from a mature finding what has been removed already.
Exactly. So, the team replanting this fragment mainly carry out in a dead mat, in area where Posidonia beds were once present, and where the probability of restoration success is high. So
it's quite important because
it's very important. Yeah,
it's a place where Posidonia was before. It has been destroyed, but the reason of the destruction is now removed, and so we can go for it. We can also invest money, and it connects a lot to what you've said. Passive and active with Blue Seeds, for example, it's the need for money. So I guess all the money we can collect has to be allocated to something that matters. We are already arriving at the end of this session, so maybe in really a few seconds, if you would like each of you to give a last message to the audience, starting with you, Julie, for example.
I think one important thing is when you want to protect something, the idea is what do you want to protect and what is the question? Because if you want to protect algae, it's not the same method and the same kind of MPA that when you want to protect fish. So, and also if you want to include the local community, so you have to think in a different way. And the question of what do you want to protect, it's very important.
I should be at the beginning of it. Yeah. Guillaume and then Amy.
Yes, the Mediterranean Sea is the most beautiful place in the world, but it's also one of the most complex because you have so many layers of threats and of stakeholders. And so, yeah, we have to push, and I hope at UNOC it will be happening because on Tuesday 10th there is
there is a one day dedicated to Mediterranean Sea. Yes.
So we need to push forward for more cooperation, and this is something that especially TOG is Together for the Med Network is trying to make it happen.
So for Together for the Med, Amy, and then Jean-Vincent, we'll finish with Lisa.
Yes, building off of that, I think just that the only way to protect this place is to connect to one another and learn from each other and be involved with local communities in every way we possibly can.
Thank you, Amy. Jean-Vincent?
I said, don't forget the shallow coastal waters where you can swim. It's a place rich in biodiversity, rich in larvae and juveniles, and find refuge there. So take a mask and snorkel to discover, to respect and protect them.
And if you're shy to put your head in the water, you can search for the pictures taken by Jean-Vincent about that area. It's beautiful. Louisa, I'm sure you will be happy also to talk about the shoreline.
Actually, thank you for giving me the floor last, because I would like to finish thanking you for organizing this event, in which I was really happy to participate, even if I'm very busy, effectively, because I think that you are also very busy, and it's important you put a lot of energy in this kind of events that are actually very important as protecting and doing action, because this is putting people together, talking, and spread all the efforts that are done. And I really congratulate you, because this is one of the part of research management and so on that it's really very important, and sometimes we don't give enough value to these actions.
Thank you, everyone. So it's time to conclude, and so in a few minutes, like something like 30 minutes, we're going to go for the next session. That will be session 4 on something different: big data, AI, but also the ocean, and we will still talk about conservation, but with technology. So see you in a bit less than 30 minutes, and thank you. Good luck for the continuation of the PhD and all of that. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Your name? Oscar.